All right, it's 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting of the Mashpee Finance Committee to order for Thursday, August 26, 2021. First order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we can have a moment of silence for those who have given their lives in service to our community and to those who have lost their lives to COVID.
Mr. Chairman, may I add the 12 Marines that were killed in Afghanistan today?
Very
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you. Is there anybody for public comment? Seeing none and hearing no comment, we'll move on. Like a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting of August 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on those minutes? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. Is anyone opposed to accepting the minutes?
I'm going to abstain only because I had not read the minutes yet.
Okay.
And I will abstain as well because I wasn't at the meeting.
All right. All right.
yes.
We'll take a vote then. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much. All right, we got nothing, I've got nothing as far as appointments or hearings. Anyone from the, I don't see anybody from the Board of Selectmen. Don't see anybody from the school board either. All right, let's move on. Let's get into the meat of the meeting. Kind of the, going through the articles of the warrant. We're still working off of draft 2, is that correct? That's the only one I've got.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So, what I'd like to do, how I'd like to proceed with this is read the article, we'll take a motion to recommend, then we can have our discussion. So that once the motion is on the floor, we can then have our discussion on it. And ask any questions beyond what have already been asked, so. Article 1, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court pursuant to Section 8 of the Home Rule Amendment to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Article 89, for an amendment to the Mashpee Home Rule Charter striking out the words Board of Selectmen or Selectmen wherever they appear in said charter, and inserting in place thereof the words Select Board, and to strike out the definition of Board of Selectmen set forth in Section 1(7) of the Charter and insert in place thereof Select Board. The word Select Board shall mean the board of persons referred to in the general laws of Massachusetts and heretofore in this Charter as the Board of Selectmen. Further, subject to, in furtherance of, and consistent with said Charter amendment, to amend Chapter 4, Article 2, subsection 4-2 of the Massachusetts General Bylaws by substituting the term Select Board for Board of Selectmen and adding the following sentence. For purposes of these bylaws, the Select Board shall assume and retain the status of the formerly designated Board of Selectmen and shall assume all powers and duties vested in a Board of Selectmen by general or specific law, home rule charter, these bylaws, or other applicable authority. To amend Article 16, subsection 17491 of the zoning bylaws by substituting the term Select Board for Board of Selectmen, and further by deleting in every other instance in which they appear in the general bylaws, with the exception of Chapter 1, Article 1, subsection 1-1, and in the zoning bylaw, the terms Board of Selectmen and Selectmen, and inserting in their place the word Select Board.
Mr. Chairman, can we dispense with the reading of these articles since we're all working from the same hard copy, I assume?
Do you want to make that motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Is there a second for that? Hearing none,
Then let me inquire as to the reason for reading them.
just to get them on the record. So that the record shows exactly what we're talking about.
And what record would that be?
Our minutes that will then get published.
So the minutes are going to include the text of all of these articles?
I don't know, but that's why I'm reading them into the record anyways.
Well, who's doing the minutes?
Terry is.
Would you expect to print all of these articles as read in the minutes?
I'm just here at the wish of the Finance Committee,
In my opinion,
just recording the minutes.
minutes are not word for word. The saying is they're minutes, not ours, and not every word should be recorded in the minutes. Minutes should be recording your actions that you take, the motions, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a word-by-word transcript.
That being the case, I'm going to restate my motion to dispense with the reading of the articles. It's just time-consuming, and I see no practical benefit of doing that if the record might not incorporate them anyway.
I'll second that, John. I'll give you that.
All right, any further discussion on this? We've got a motion on the floor to dispense with the reading of the articles. All in favor? John?
Aye.
Pat?
Yes.
Aye.
Carleen?
I'm
Great.
sorry, I didn't hear.
No.
Oh,
Thank you.
No.
No.
I would actually vote yes. What's the,
We have time. We'll flip a coin.
Perhaps a recount is in order.
I'll change my vote, Mr. Chairman. I'll
May I
vote yes.
suggest that on the short ones, they be read, but the ones that are extremely long,
With that
because a few in here, like the solar one is extremely
Right.
long with the definitions.
Right.
May I maybe amend that motion that we would read the shorter ones, but the longer ones, a quick synopsis of it, and then get to the point?
I'll agree with that. I'll change my
John,
vote.
would you be all right with that?
No,
Okay.
I just don't see the point of reading it. It's in black and white in
What's a
front of us.
tie, John? Right?
Well, we had a tie on the last one, so I'll make the motion to dispense with the longer ones, but just read the shorter ones, because some of them are just a sentence or two.
all right, so we've got a new motion to,
I'll second that motion.
all right, and take a vote to dispense with the reading of the longer articles. John?
Sure, why not, in the interest of compromise?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, back to Article 1, looking for a motion to recommend this article.
I move that we recommend Article 1.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion on this article?
no,
What seems to be the necessity to do this?
gender diversity. You have a diverse select board.
We're already diverse.
Yes,
Yeah.
We are
So-
human, we're woman and is mankind. I think it's a waste of time and a waste of ink.
I think it's fashionable. Many other towns in the Commonwealth are doing it, and I think it's fashionable because it's appropriate. It doesn't distinguish between men and women.
Well, in my opinion, selectmen, they don't distinguish between them either, so you know where I'm going with it.
Is there a cost to changing all this? A financial cost somewhere down the road, changing it from selectmen to select board?
I won't suggest that there isn't a cost in terms of printing paper and things of that nature, but this matter was brought to my attention by a member of the Mashpee Inclusion and Diversity Committee, and when it was researched, there are other towns that have done this, and I thought it behooved the town to bring it before the board, and when I did, I know that it passed. I believe it was unanimous.
Just let me clarify my comment. I'm not advocating it because it's fashionable, as a poor choice of words, but I think in this era of gender-neutral enlightenment that many thoughtful people subscribe to, that there's nothing to be lost by changing that name. And I've noticed that even in the media, when they're reporting on activities of the Board of Selectmen in Mashpee, I guess partly because other towns on the Cape have changed it to Select Board, they refer to it as the Select Board. So there's a little continuity issue between how we officially recognize it and how the public is starting to label boards of select people.
Any further discussion on this?
Well, I think it should be noted that the chairperson of the selectmen originally said she didn't care whether it got changed or not, and she changed her vote when it came up for a vote. But she was originally, and it was published that it made no difference to her. So,
But now it does.
well, it makes a difference. I just can't be woke, let me put it that way. And I'm kind of sick of redefining everything that's been, when it covers all mankind, covers human and woman. That's all, have MAN in it also. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter.
We'll take a vote. James?
Yes.
Greg?
No.
Darlene?
No.
Pat?
No.
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. We got a 3-3 split on this. So at the moment, we actually have no recommendation.
Can I ask a question about that? If we have if the Board of Selectmen, for example, on any article, had a split vote, 3-3, or I guess it wouldn't, if someone was absent, let's say, and it came down to 2-2, does that mean that there's no recommendation from the Board of Selectmen? Or from the what are we calling it, the Board of Selectmen? Mm-hmm. It just seems odd that the two entities in the town that make recommendations on articles would have none, only because there was a split vote. It sort of leaves the voters saying, well, gee, are the town fathers in favor of it, or the finance committee, or not?
They can make their own
Yeah,
decisions.
that's
I
what,
guess that's,
That's what it's all about.
Okay.
People can make their own decisions, have a free thought, and not have to follow what everyone else is doing, so they can follow the leader and be politically correct about everything.
okay. Which then, of course, begs the question of why make recommendations at all, if we want it to be a true democracy. But let's not go there.
no.
Don't go there,
Today.
John, you're getting off.
Been down that road.
So one thing I'll note, we're shy a member tonight. If that member wanted to bring this back up at some other point, because they want their voice heard in this, they could come forward and do that. I've done that in the past. So they could do that, so that's.
So that's just where it stands
That's
until
why we
we
have an odd number on the board,
finalize it.
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
But we don't tonight, so we have to live with that.
All right, we'll move on to Article number 2. To see if the town will vote pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 15 and subsection 15A, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to transfer title, care, management, custody, and/or control of the real property identified as 108 Commercial Street, Mashpee Assessors Map 81, Parcel 130, to the Mashpee Affordable Housing Trust for purposes of developing affordable housing, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen to prepare and execute such agreements, deeds, and other instruments necessary to effect said transfer upon such terms and conditions as the selectmen shall deem to be in the interest of the town or take any other action thereto. Look for a motion to recommend.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none. We'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Vote to recommend that. Great. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $10,600 from revenue available for appropriation, with said funds distributed as follows: $9,180 to the Sewer Commission full-time salaries account, $1,265 to the sick leave incentive account, and $155 to the Medicare expense account. Looking for a motion to recommend?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm just wondering, as we go through these, we had asked the town manager to comment on, I think, all of these articles, and I'm sure it took quite a bit of time and effort to do that, so maybe as we go through what we're doing now, it would be prudent to take those responses into consideration.
Well, I'm assuming they came out in email, so I assumed everybody had at least gone through them. If anybody has any questions beyond that, or want to, haven't had a chance to, and want to know what his response was to those questions, we can read those then.
I'd like some further explanation on that, if I could. And I see your explanation here, but elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. When we post a position, we try to have a good faith estimate on the salary of that individual. As you probably recall, it's been quite a while. In fact, I don't know that the town has ever had an engineer. I know the position was authorized back in, I believe it was the 80s, but I don't believe we've ever had one. So, long story short, we established a scale consistent with what we felt fit the position based on the criteria. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it. Education, training, experience, and then, of course, the knowledge, skills, and abilities of that individual, as well as the essential functions to be performed. Long story short, we went through the process. At the time, Mr. Fidella and Mr. Gottlieb were on the Select Committee recommending this particular individual to me as the appointing authority. And I thought the individual came highly qualified. I was very impressed with the experience. I don't want to get into the habit of discussing personnel issues in public, but I will say that the initial pay scale was not compatible with what the individual would be seeking, and therefore, he might remain in the the private sector versus the public sector. It was recommended that this individual be adjusted accordingly, but in order to do that, we need these funds approved at town meeting in October. If you did not approve them, and when I say you, I guess I'm talking about town meeting, if they were rejected at town meeting, we could not sustain the salary and benefits of this individual. So then what are we going to do with phase one? I don't know. So I highly recommend that this be approved.
This is unique among all other current or anticipated town employees?
I'd call it that, John. I'd call it unique because, number one, this was the first person in this position to my recollection. And then secondly, we were under a tight timeline regarding getting phase one underway. I don't want to say I was at a disadvantage because I never want to be at a disadvantage when negotiating, but when you're looking at tight timelines and when you're looking at the qualifications of an individual and then you're matching that with what you need in order to get the job done, obviously it's all relevant. So therefore, yes, I wholeheartedly feel that this is worth every penny. As a matter of fact, I think it's fair to say that the engineer has saved us far more already with his review of various things that have come across his desk than compared to what we're going to be paying him compared to the initial estimated cost for his position. It was a good faith estimate, but like anything else, sometimes you can be off a little bit.
Yeah.
And just for the record, we had no second choice as a backup with his qualifications.
Yeah, no, I agree with the merits of having the position and this particular person in it. But by unique, I meant there are no other new hires contemplated that haven't already been budgeted for in some manner.
If there was a new hire, then that person's pay would be consistent with the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
Or if it's outside of that, it would be consistent with a personal service contract. If it didn't include a personal service contract, it would be within the PAP.
Okay, that's what I needed. Thanks.
So how is Article 3 connected to Article 4? Unless I have it. I'm sorry. Never mind. Scratch that. No, that's right. My Article 4 is,
Well, I'll be more than happy to answer that question.
yeah, go ahead.
The question that I was asked is, will the wastewater management department include someone from the finance committee? That's like saying, will somebody from the finance committee be a firefighter? Or is somebody from the finance committee going to be a police officer just because we have departments that have different tasks?
Right.
That,
I for one, want to be on as few committees as possible.
Exactly.
well, it's not
It's not a committee, it's a
but
department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
It's not a committee. It's a department.
Right.
Obviously, you have a very vital role because any expenditure, whether it be an operations expenditure or whether it be a capital expenditure, you will be reviewing that like you would for any department.
Right.
And you'll have the opportunity to ask the numerous questions, the tough questions, and any other questions relating to the financial aspect to it. But there's a obviously distinct difference between a department versus a committee or a commission or a board.
And just one more question on the engineer. Though his primary function may be wastewater, might you use him for some other things or consult with him on some other things?
We have, to answer your question, we have and we will. Wherever we can save some money, then we're going to, and the individual is not in any collective bargaining agreement, so he's a non-union member.
Thank you.
Is this position assigned to DPW, or is it a freestanding?
No, right now, it's kind of freestanding out
Okay.
there alone, which is why we want to create the department.
Got it.
So he will, in essence, be the department head. Right now, we're calling it a department, but technically, until the town authorizes the modification, it's not a department, technically.
Understood.
Any other questions on Article 3?
And then just add one more thing, Mr. Chair. We couldn't wait to hire the engineer because of the timing of the wastewater project. So that's why everything is not in sync as we would probably prefer it to be, as it typically would if we were creating a new department like DNR or something like that.
Hearing no other questions, we will take a vote to recommend Article 3. James?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, moving on to Article 4. To see if the town will vote to create a wastewater management department as follows. Language to be coming. So, looking for a motion, and I'll take either a motion to recommend or a motion to hold at this point, depending on whether people want to wait to see what the language looks like.
I'll move to recommend.
All right? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Because the selectmen have already recommended it. I guess one question would be, at this stage of the game, how many employees would be in that department initially, even if they're moving from somewhere else?
One,
Just
The
the town
engineer.
engineer for now? Okay.
Any idea?
Now, there could be a split situation where a administrative assistant or an administrative secretary is shared with this department and another department, but that is something that would be ironed out with the clerical union, which we have done in the past.
Okay.
So I don't want to make it sound like there'll never be another one, but essentially, it's going to be one.
And then, as it stands now, this position reports directly to you as
Yes.
it would when the department is created?
Yes, all department heads report to the manager. Obviously, I report to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Or Select Board.
So what's the cost of running that department? Your best guess estimate?
Well, I don't want to mislead you. You're going to have the salary to the engineer, which you now know.
Right.
In addition, there will be some general expenses, but the biggest cost factor will be for contracted services in order to operate and maintain the plant. That will eventually be. Is that? Oh, I thought somebody said something. I'm hearing ghosts. The cost to operating the plant and maintaining the plant, which at this particular time is not going to be subject to, obviously, the ultimate approval. But so far, the recommendation has been to go with a contracted service versus town employees. Assuming we continue with that, I'm saying it can be anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million in operations. That is a really rough estimate on an annual basis, but I think that's the ballpark figure.
And those costs won't be starting until the project's done.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I didn't want to say some low figure,
Right.
and then
Right.
Greg is going to come up to me and poke me in 2 or 3 years and say, hey, wait a second, remember on August 26, 2021, when you
Right here, that's what it says.
Blah, blah, blah.
But however it gets parsed, that would be part of the 54 million or whatever that actual number was.
No, no.
No, this is
No,
the
no, no,
ongoing
no,
What do
no.
you
Oh,
think?
then I'm glad I asked.
Oh, no, no. That is completely separate. That is operations.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the ongoing annual cost of operating the system after it's built.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you, okay.
And as the assistant reminded me, it will be paid for by the fees. I don't want you to think that we're going to be dipping further into the pockets of the taxpayers, although the fee system itself is obviously structured in that way.
Do we know the fee system yet?
You mean in
Do
terms of
do we know the
revenue?
fee structure yet? How the fees are going to be structured?
Well, it's through all of the revenue sources that you've already approved since we just changed over the CPA.
Right,
Right, the WIF and,
You've got the WIF.
got you.
You've got the other revenue stream coming in through the rentals.
Right. But fees from individuals too, as they get connected to the wastewater, from their home to the plant. What
That-
fee
that's-
is that going
that's-
to cost?
And that's the user.
Correct. Do we know that
yes.
fee?
I don't know what those are going to be on the average off the top of my head.
So we don't know,
You don't
And-
know the operating costs, you don't know the fees.
right, right.
And we have, so far, the sewer commission has so far stayed away from betterments, but there's the possibility that could come back onto the table.
One question, this will be a department of one, and the service will be contracted out.
That's where we are right now, Pat. I mean, obviously, that's subject to change, because everything is fluid
They
right
wanted to
now.
change this to a full-blown department with 30 employees. Could they do it, or does that have to go back?
Not without town meeting approval.
Okay.
And I
That's
don't
my
want you to
only
think that
concern.
we haven't looked at this. We visited Chatham, we visited Falmouth, and we've taken a look and tried to analyze whether one or the other is beneficial. And what I'm being told is we definitely want to go with a contracted service. So essentially, we would pay the fee to the service, and they would perform all of the tasks, and we wouldn't be concerned about wages and benefits
Right.
and so on and so forth. It's just paid to the contracted service.
Kind of the way the transfer station is right now. It's a contracted
That is
service.
a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's exactly like the transfer station. We're paying for the operations to be conducted.
Right, right. But honestly, we don't know what those numbers are yet. We don't.
We don't, I'm giving you a ballpark. Please don't hold me to the
No.
dollar, but.
We'll
I
not
mean,
hold that to you.
I'm saying it's somewhere in the vicinity of $1 million to $1.5 million. If it's 1.7 million, then
And if it's $1.2 million, $1.5 million today, 3 years from now, it's going to be $1.5 million to $2 million,
I don't know, Greg.
likely.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
we'll know more as we get closer to it actually starting up.
So Rodney, not to belabor this, and I realize this might be kind of a delicate scenario, but so the oversight of the sewer project, is that vested with the sewer commission or the town engineer, or do they collaborate toward that end?
There is broad authority through the sewer commission. And I can give you an overview of exactly what council has provided us. In terms of the operating aspects, that would be the engineer. The engineer, although he reports to me, is going to be working in concert with the sewer commission. And obviously, there'll be a lot of collaboration there as far as fulfilling that mission to get this project completed and operational. As far as my role is concerned, if it involves a contract, if it involves an expenditure, as the chief procurement officer of the town, it's got to go through me. I have said to the sewer commission that I will obviously execute anything in the town's interest, but I want to make sure that the engineer has reviewed it. And once he has vetted it, then I will be generally okay with it,
Okay.
generally.
It'll probably be a recurring question, but I get it for now. Thank you.
So, I mean, in my mind, I'm uncomfortable with this because I don't know the numbers. And I'm gonna recommend the town something that I know we're gonna need, but I don't know the numbers. And I'm responsible for recommending a number. I don't have a number to work with, other than a good guesstimate, good faith guesstimate by yourself. And I have an issue with that.
The numbers won't come into effect until we recommend the budget. Right now, we're just talking about creating a department
Right. I get it.
of wastewater management. And it'll be up to the voters when it comes time to approve the budget to say, all right, are we spending too much on that department at that time?
I'd rather wait till we get a budget, know what the number is, then approve this. In my
Well-
own opinion.
If
Can't
I
do a
may.
budget until the project's completed.
Then we got stalemate, don't we, Jim?
Guess so.
If I may, I mean, obviously, you were at the same town meeting I was at. In May, the voters overwhelmingly approved this at town meeting. And the legislative body, I think, made it crystal clear that it was high time for us to invest and to focus on clean water. And this is part and parcel in doing that. I can't imagine the legislative body overwhelmingly approving it and then saying, but we don't want you to have a department in order to coordinate that effort, and we don't want you to have a department member, i.e. the town engineer, to not be a part of it. In terms of what I think you're driving at, if I'm not confusing what you're saying, I think your question is more focused on how much is this going to be down the road. That has been estimated at the figure that I just provided, but I just want to caution you, it's an estimate.
Right.
It's not an actual. And I know that when I've come before this committee in the past, you like actuals. You like looking at, the actual figures to compare to. Unfortunately, I just don't have that at this time.
To that general point that you're both discussing there, I mean, we're all accustomed to government always growing and not shrinking. So when you add another layer of something to a municipal or a state or a federal government, it's usually in addition to and not instead of.
Correct.
And I could foresee as our collective fiscal responsibilities emerge over the next year, 5 years, 10 years or so, that and I imagine the Board of Selectmen would be sort of in a leadership role on this unless the town manager advocated for it. But, you know, we might need to find out at some point how the voters would feel if certain other town services are shrunk in order to partially fund things that were perhaps important 10 years ago, but might not be as important 10 years from now. And I don't have a list of what those candidates might be, but it's easy to, not easy, not even popular, to see the cost of government incrementally increase, even though we do a particularly good job, I think, in Mashpee of keeping that under control. But when we're talking, potentially a $500 million capital undertaking over time for a multi-purpose sewer system, and then personnel and departments to oversee that, which will have embedded cost with them, maybe we do need to periodically take a look strategically at whether certain other services that we all have come to love and respect and enjoy are really a prudent investment compared to things like the environment. I don't know, but I'm just speculating.
Yeah, and I hope you're not getting confused, because essentially the sewer department that, in essence, we were going to have is just being referred to the wastewater management department. But I understand your point, and I guess the only thing I can say is when there are additional services required, you either increase taxes or you reduce other services, or somehow you enhance your revenues. I think we've adjusted those revenues, and I can get you some specific numbers that will offset some of this, and I think it's been well articulated in public meetings in the past. I don't think we're on the verge of any crisis, but yes, is this costly? It is. But I also think that it was loud and clear that it's time to make this investment, and we're doing it. And I think we're doing it in a measured way, and some would say far too slow, but at least we're coming out of the gate and trying to cross the T's and dot the I's. And I don't want to be at a public mic here and start getting into this, but we also run the risk of litigation if certain things aren't done in a timely manner.
Sure.
And that's been already publicized, which is the only reason why I'm referring to it, and that's the Conservation Law Foundation.
Well, my only point is I think we excel at being fiscally prudent and frugal, and at finding sources of revenue or incrementally increasing taxes when it's legitimately warranted. But like most governments, we're probably not any better than anyone else when it comes to curtailing, certain amenities that we've become accustomed to. And I'm not suggesting that we should, and I don't have a short list, but I'm just saying, as we project our pro formas 5 or 10 years down the road, that might be on the take a look at list, along with all of these other things that we routinely deal with.
We knew this was the elephant in the room, and that day has arrived.
Right.
Any more questions, discussion on Article 4? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Reluctantly, yes.
James?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Article 5. To see if the town will vote to amend section 17448.1 subsection B, Plan Review Committee of the Mashpee zoning bylaws by adding town engineer as follows. B, membership of the Plan Review Committee shall consist of the town engineer, building inspector, health agent, town planner, conservation agent, fire chief, police chief, director of public works, and town manager, or their designees. The committee may organize itself in any way it deems appropriate and establish rules and procedures it deems necessary for the performance of its functions. The committee may meet as a group to discuss projects, in which case it shall follow the requirements of the open meeting law, or it may establish procedures under which, for certain types of uses, the members may file individual recommendations regarding a project with the building inspector, who shall compile the committee's decision or recommendations letter, or decision or recommendation provided to the applicant, and if appropriate, to the special permit granting authority, and record it with the town clerk. Looking for a motion to recommend
I move we recommend Article
5.
5.
Is there,
Second,
all right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. James?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
yes.
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right. Article 6. To see if the town will vote to rescind the authority to issue the following unissued balances of authorized bonds or notes pursuant to the votes adopted under the following articles, to the extent not previously exercised, or take any other action thereto. So there are 4 items: the Mashpee River Dredge, the Solar Power and Senior Center, Quashnet School Building, and Chapter 90, 2019.
So Rodney, this is money that wasn't
Just-
used?
I
Oh, sorry.
need a motion to recommend
Oh,
first.
sorry. Excuse me.
So looking for a motion to recommend this article.
Motion to recommend.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, now, Greg, go ahead.
Thank you. So, is this money for projects that
Yeah.
basically weren't used and we
Yeah.
didn't get to?
The Quashnet School and the Chapter 90 were completed. These are leftover balance.
Got you.
Of authorizations not used. The Senior Center solar power authorization was authorized but never commenced.
Right.
And the Mashpee River Dredge was never started or completed. Is there anything else?
It is no funds either. This is just an authorization to borrow those funds.
So this isn't money coming back, it's money we never took. Thank
They
you.
never borrowed this money, they just had the ability to borrow this money.
Money
for
we
these
saved.
projects.
Yes, money we saved, there you go. I like that one, Mr. Town Manager, money we saved.
You can vote yes.
This is all you could find?
Will the river dredge ever be done?
I'm sorry, will
Will
the river ever be
Ever
dredged?
be done?
Will it ever be done?
Are they
the
dredging
dredging?
the river or not?
I don't know. I'd probably defer to Ken Bates on the Waterway Committee and DNR, but there is no plan at this particular time.
That was 2001 also, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
This is time to, look at the dates, 2008
That's amazing.
for the other one, so we can clean up the books here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd say it's time.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we will take a vote. John?
Actually, I do have one.
Okay.
question. When we do this, does this benefit our bond rating if our ability to borrow is reduced?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Anything else? All right, John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Greg,
An enthusiastic yes.
James,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer $50,000 from the principal temp borrow outside 2.5 account to the principal temporary borrowing inside 2.5 account, and vote to transfer $2,720 from interest temp borrow inside 2.5 to the interest temp borrow outside 2.5, or take any other action relating thereto. Looking for a motion to recommend.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions?
Could you decipher that for me?
Yeah. What was that, Governor?
This article is needed to put the funds in the proper accounts for disbursement when the bans come due.
Gotcha.
And I would defer to the,
Yeah, just make sure I understand, because it is kind of interesting jargon, so.
I'll defer to the.
Yes, please, thank you, Ron.
So when we create the budget, when we have a capital project that we're going to borrow for, or we are in the process of borrowing, we temporarily borrow those funds. So we're only paying interest. At times, we'll pay principal on that. At that time, it's an estimate, because it's done, the budget is done so far in advance. Once we actually begin the fiscal year and the treasurer starts borrowing the funds, we get a better idea of what is needed and for interest, for principal, all of that. For temporary, this is just the temporary. Our bonds, we know what the payments are every year. It's important to make sure that you don't have too much money in your outside accounts. You want to try to budget as close as you can, because those outside 2.5 is what you borrow over and above your tax levy. So we don't want to borrow any more, or we don't want to tax the taxpayers for any funds that we don't necessarily need to. We're trying to keep any, that budget within the levy limit.
Gotcha.
So this is just really trying to be more accurate with what is due for debt in the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we will take a vote. James,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right, Article number 8. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $2,256.25 from revenue available for appropriation to pay the previous fiscal year's unpaid bills as follows. Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod, $2,256.25, or take any other action there too. Looking for a motion to recommend?
I just want to mention that Article 8 was amended to also include a last-minute unpaid bill to Northeast Resource Recovery Association, and that amount was $539.25. And there was a memo explaining that. I don't know if that's been distributed to you. I think it was in the packet that I gave you, but I'm just going to double-check here.
Yeah, I think
Yes, it was. It was in your, it was an attachment to the email.
Yes, I thought I put it in there, but
Yeah, but I didn't see anything related to that bill. Yeah, the memo dealt with specifically the VNA one, which
It was
was,
in the same attachment, just more further on.
I saw the invoice, but I evidently didn't see the memo
do-
explaining it.
Memo. For Jeff's records.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
so do you have the memo that was dated to myself from the DPW director, August 23rd?
I I've got it right here, yes.
Okay, and then attached to that should also be the invoice from Northeast
It may not,
Resource.
it may just not have printed out on mine. I had a problem with my printer, so.
Okay, we'll get that for you. How many of those copies do you need?
Yeah.
Just need a copy for yourself?
Yeah, just one copy. That'd be great.
What do we purchase from the VNA, out of curiosity?
That was the Health Department.
It was COVID surveillance from the
Yep.
VNA.
What was it? COVID surveillance?
In
Yes.
other words, the tracking of COVID.
COVID
Oh, I see, okay.
Didn't we have COVID money to do that?
I'm sorry?
Didn't we have COVID money to do that? Wasn't the COVID,
There-
any
there-
COVID money left over to use for that?
Yes, there's all kind of COVID money, yes.
Thank you very much. So the total amended amount is $2,795.50.
Was it 279?
Oh, if I could, Mr. Chair, the Assistant Manager gave me a good reminder that that particular article is now sponsored by the Select Board because it came in the timeline where we had no other choice. They had to do it, or otherwise we couldn't amend it.
It was submitted by, which board was that?
Well, I think initially it was
Originally
the
Board of Health.
Board of Health, but what I'm pointing out, as a result of the amendment from DPW, it's now a board-sponsored article because the Select Board has an extension on when they can do something with the
That's what I
warrant
thought you
because
said.
it's their
Select
agenda.
board, that's what I was getting at, so. Must be
Look
a
at-
Freudian
look at-
slip.
Look at Pat scowl at me.
Listen, all I can say is, I just don't agree with what's going on because it's nonsense. There is 2 genders, there's not 75 of them out there.
Okay.
So we can go from there, okay? We have too many important things to do than worry about that.
So, in that spirit, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out that it's now an article sponsored by the board.
Yep.
How's that?
Well said.
Yeah, so I was quite interested, the one from the VNA went back to December of 2020, for fiscal year 2020, so that was a couple of years old. And we're only doing this because it didn't get paid through Barnstable County.
Yes, what I can tell you is there was a lot of back and forth regarding this particular
Yeah.
bill that I just assumed not say in public.
All right, so we've got a motion to recommend Article 20, Article 8. Are you all those who made the motion open to the friendly amendment to the correction of the amount and the inclusion of the second invoice?
I am.
So we're voting to recommend Article 8 as amended. The total amount is $2,795.50.
Mr. Chair, I didn't get who made the motion in the second.
Greg made the original, and I believe Pat seconded.
Thank you.
All right, we will take a vote. James?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Article 9. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of blank from revenue available for appropriations to the CARES Act or take any other action relating thereto. Is there a motion to recommend this article?
Hold.
Got a motion to hold? Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just don't know what the number is. What are we appropriating and transferring? Do we know yet? Hello.
Hi there. At this point, I'm looking at about $800,000, and that is to cover the shortfall that we have currently for the expenditures that have been charged to the CARES Act, as well as what is anticipated by the Department of Public Works at this point. Right now, we have received all of the $1,250,000 in CARES Act funds, but we do have a deficit. It's almost like a snow and ice account where we can't stop paying COVID expenses. We have to pay them. And this is a federal fund, so we did request last year to deficit spend, and we did get permission from the Department of Revenue to do that. The idea, and I think I spoke to this in the last meeting, was to keep the COVID expenses separate from all the operating budgets. We felt that was very important. And that's what we did. So what you're seeing in the most recent, I believe you have a summary and some detail behind it. The $1.7 million is what we have spent to date. I'm trying to give a best estimate that I can to get us through not only the deficit that we currently have, but any anticipated expenses coming up. So I'm going to say, I had told the town manager, 800,000 is my best guess. Anything, it's going to be allocated only for this purpose. So if there's anything remaining, it will revert to the general fund. But I can't guarantee, I don't know what will happen over the winter. If there's going to be additional expenses, I can't guarantee I won't come back in May either. We're just trying to do our best to give a good estimate without being excessive.
But is that going to be your number in the warrant?
We haven't discussed an exact number, but I would say that would make me comfortable at this point in time. You know, we're trying to work with this new variant out there. I don't know if there's going to be more. The school, you know, is DPW going to have to do more with the school? We're trying to work that out.
Still
I
some
would say
unknowns,
800,000,
right?
yeah. That's my guess at this point in time.
And when will you know that number for certain?
I think that the best I can say is I'm comfortable with the number that the finance director is referring to today. But what about tomorrow and next week, or the week after, or the month after? It all depends upon the totality of circumstances that we're confronted with. And if I had a crystal ball that determined that, then with all due respect, I don't think I'd be sitting here.
So more than likely, there will not be a final number in there until it's ratified by the board. Okay.
At some point, though, weren't we kind of tracking toward a possible surplus from COVID-related funds? Maybe that's not the right word, but had we anticipated a deficit all along, pretty much?
Yes.
Okay, I must have,
Well, we didn't know at the time when we were first awarded those funds from the federal government, the CARES Act funds.
right.
We had no idea what COVID would be at that point. As time went on and we saw the expenses associated with it, we did realize that it went significantly over and above the amount that was allocated through the CARES Act.
Okay, and this is to distinguish CARES Fund from ARPA,
Correct,
which is another animal.
yes.
Okay.
So by the time that we have town meeting, we'll know that number.
There will be a number.
So does it behoove us to wait until
Well,
town meeting to get a number and vote that night?
Well, it should be in the warrant by the time the board executes it on the 13th of September. And we've got a meeting on the 14th, so we can make our,
I mean,
vote
we
our
can
recommendation
provide
then.
something as close as we can. I don't know if
I
you're
see
comfortable with
the
that.
selectmen unanimously recommends it, so they must be taking a confident leap of faith that whatever the number is what it needs to be.
Again, this will be allocated only for COVID
Right,
expenses.
right.
So it's not like it's going to go into any budget. It's going to be specific to the CARES Act.
Right.
And if there are funds remaining, it will go back.
Right.
And we can't charge anything else to the CARES Act except for COVID-related expenses. So you can be guaranteed that anything that is appropriated through town meeting,
Right.
these funds will be used. for
No,
that
I get that. I'm just trying to come up with a number so we have a factual number, and I know it's going to be used for exactly what you said it's going to be used for. No
Yes.
doubt about that.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get a number, and if it's going to be on the 13th and they vote, we can vote for it on the 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll reassemble our team and staff and try to get that number specifically so that you're comfortable with the article.
Yeah.
Or maybe you won't be, I don't know, when you see the number.
Well, meanwhile, I'm okay with the action to hold if we
Yeah.
vote that way.
Yeah, we've got a,
And then we'll find out. so.
right, so we're voting to hold this article and revisit it. We'll start with John,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Darlene,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
and yes. So we'll put that on hold for right now.
Thank you, Don.
All right. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, or transfer the sum of $9,625 from revenue available for appropriation to the Sewer Commission Professional and Technology account for aerial photography of the entire town, or take any other action relating thereto. Looking for a motion to recommend.
I move that we recommend.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Are they just doing where the sewer is going to be put, or are they doing the whole town? It looks like the whole town, but if we're not, if this is related to the sewer project, why are we doing the whole town?
This was a
Imagine
cost savings,
future development.
correct. This was a significant cost savings measure.
Okay.
So I can't speak in engineering terms, but what I can tell you is by doing it this way, we're going to save a lot of money with GHD.
That was going to be my point right there. I was going to ask you, so GHD hasn't done this, they probably would like to do this, but your guy's going to charge us less, and we're going to save some money.
And then we're going to have it.
Plus, if the drone is at 1,000 feet, you probably get the whole town in one shot anyway, so.
I can tell you that this is a cost savings, and if you would like further information, I'll have the engineer come in and explain it to you.
Sounds like money well spent
There's
to me.
there's no doubt this was a cost savings.
And when you said the whole town, yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
But the reason for that is there's.
You got to use the mic.
The reason they're doing the whole town is for the other phases that are coming into
Okay.
play. So it's not just about this one, it's about the rest of the phases that have to
Okay.
happen.
I didn't know if it was specific to just what they were doing, or this is for the whole project. Okay. And the town will control it instead of subbing it out. In this case, there'd be significant savings.
And the savings was significant.
Okay. That's fine with me then.
Anything further? All right, we'll take a vote. James,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44B, subsection 6, to reserve from the FY 2022 estimated community preservation revenues the following amounts: $198,834, 10% for open space recreational purposes, $198,834, 10% for historic preservation purposes, $198,834 for 10% for affordable housing purposes, and $1,351,834 to the FY 2022 Community Preservation Fund budget for appropriation reserve as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. Or take any other action there too. I'm looking for a motion to recommend this article.
So moved. So moved.
Is it second?
Second.
All right, any discussion, questions on this article?
The total here, I'm guessing, is noticeably less than it was a year ago because of the WIF reallocation?
The finance director is a member.
Yeah.
Aha.
Actually, this, for fiscal year '21, I did speak to the Department of Revenue exactly regarding that.
Yeah.
And I was told, we have to do a calculation in order to estimate these revenues. And that calculation is based on the prior year's commitment
It is.
of the community preservation. And he said to follow that for this 1 year.
All
I
right.
need to follow that, because I had to file a document in August of this, actually, it was before that. I think it was in the spring or something like that. But I had to file with that in order to do an estimated revenue for '21.
Okay, so it's next year then that the effect of going from 3% to 2% would kick in?
Well, it actually is going to start in January. That it's
okay,
going to
well.
drop down, yeah,
Next calendar year?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And then what happens with the Community Preservation Act, we cannot spend these revenues until we give an estimate. So you're actually spending money that you're estimating. So we are a little conservative when we're doing that, because we don't want to approve funding for projects over and above what we're estimating in the
Makes sense.
revenues. And these reserves are required, as you know, 10% is required to be set aside for each of those reserves. The remaining amount, once we do our estimates, once you take those reserves out, that's what that budgeted for appropriation reserve is. And it can be used for any legal purpose, including anything under those reserves, but anything outside of those reserves as well.
So,
Thank you, Don.
so do we have is there a specific account, open space recreation, historical preservation purposes, and affordable housing? Do you have those accounts put aside somewhere?
They're in the fund balance, I do have
Yes.
a reserve, yes.
And what is the balance of those funds?
Yes, the current balance is in the reserves. For open space, it's 310,000. Affordable housing, it's 520,000. And historical purposes, it's 492,000. And then these funds that you see on the warrant will be added to those amounts.
What's the Community Preservation Fund used for?
Community preservation funds?
Yes.
They can be used for any of these purposes: open space, affordable housing, historical purposes. We've done recreational, a lot has been used for recreational purposes, including the boat ramps, the splash pad up here. There's been playgrounds, we use them. Open space, we've purchased open space with those funds. Pickleball, yes, the pickleball courts. That was an acceptable expenditure. The one recreational item that they have been clear it is not allowable is artificial turf. And that was a pretty hot topic.
So, okay, so that was like open recreational purposes. Could we fund what would otherwise be a school project?
Yes, any town project. We
Okay.
have done,
And we
actually.
have, I think,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
the track was done several
Right,
years
that's
ago.
right.
We did redo the track with
Right.
community preservation funds.
So unless, theoretically then, unless we have other commitments in the queue for recreational purposes, 310 plus 200, $500,000 is available for
As
the
well as,
schools.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
If that was the best use.
as well as the budgeted for appropriation reserve is available as well.
Got it.
And then applications will be due, I believe, November 1st to the Community Preservation Committee. So there will be applications submitted, they'll be reviewed, and the committee will determine which projects will be funded. November 1st.
Great, thanks, Tom.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes?
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
James?
Yep.
And I'm a yes. All right. Article 12. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from the Community Preservation Budget for Appropriation Reserve in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, subsection 5, the sum of $425,000 for the purpose of funding the Aquay Bay Boat Ramp Improvement Project Phase 3, including necessary costs and expenses related thereto, as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee, or take any other action relating thereto. Is there a motion to recommend this article?
Make a motion to hold?
All right, we've got a motion to hold. Is there a second for that?
Why hold? Oh, okay.
I just
Never
want to
mind.
hear I want to hear more about this from maybe someone from the wastewater department. I mean, the waterways department, excuse me. That's right.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion?
Or maybe Rodney can talk.
Can we discuss the article other than the motion to hold?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not guessing, I just want more information.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
So right now, it's a hold pending further information. But it's open for discussion. Any questions you have that right now are welcome.
So, from reading this, and this is all I know about it, what's printed here, is, so the 425 would come out of the Community Preservation Fund that we just talked about for Phase 3. So I guess my question is, it says Phase 3, and the explanation would replace the ramp and the scour pad at the end of the ramp, blah, 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 blah. If the funding is received to be completed in the winter or spring, design and permitting for the project will be funded through. So I guess my question is this the amount above design and permitting costs to construct the ramp?
I'm going to just point out that this ramp is 35 years old, and as it says in the explanation, it has deteriorated due to the salt water corrosion.
Sure.
The Community Preservation Committee voted 9-0 in support of the article. The Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 in favor of the article. And I also just want to point out that this is one of those areas for recreational boaters as well as fisherman, and I think it was always on the schedule. I believe, I should also point out that it's utilized by DNR and the town shellfish propagation program, which I think is critical to the overall problem that we're all trying to confront. And I can get the Waterways Chair, Ken Bates, in here. I can get the DNR Director in here. I can get the DPW Director in here to elaborate. For Phase 1, as far as the dock and the flow system, and Phase 2, the parking lot, those are complete. And those came in under budget, as pointed out, respectfully, 12% and 3%. But obviously, if you have some specific concerns or questions, then we can try to get more info for you.
Well, my specific question is, if the design and permitting, maybe it's just the way it's worded, design and permitting for the so it's a $450,000 project, inclusive of all 3 phases, 2 of which have already been completed? In other words, the 425 that the article seeks is not in addition, or is that part of the 450,000 that's referenced in the
That's
explanation?
what I'm wondering.
Misprint.
It looks like one pays for, one's 425, one's 450, two different
Yeah.
numbers.
Cut and pasted it from this.
I'm
Okay, well,
unfortunately not comfortable answering that with a degree of certainty, so why don't we
Yeah.
respectfully put
That's
that
the
on
reason.
hold, and
Yeah.
we'll do some research and get back to you.
Excellent, excellent.
That's exactly why we got a request to hold.
Right.
All right, anything else? If not, we'll take a vote on the putting Article 12 on hold. John?
yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, we'll put that on hold. All right, on to Article 13. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $50,000 from revenue available for appropriation to the Natural Resources Waterways expense account, or take any other action relating thereto. Looking for a motion to recommend.
Make a motion, recommend.
Second.
All right, any discussion, questions?
The explanation goes into provide funds for consulting services, but the actual article doesn't say the purpose of it. Now, this for consulting services to implement a state-approved harbor management plan, is that what this is for?
Why don't you come up?
Okay.
The funds that they're requesting are matching funds for the grant. We have to do either in-kind services or whatever. You know, part of this, Pat, has got to do with MTV and
Yep.
what they're contributing.
Thanks, Wayne.
Yep.
Anything else on Article 13? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
James?
Yep.
And I'm a yes. To recommend that. All right, that will move us on to Article 14. To see if the town will vote to prohibit overnight occupancy on town-issued moorings within Mashpee estuarine systems, revisions to Mashpee bylaws, Chapter 170-9A, or take any other action relating thereto. Looking for a motion to recommend Article 14.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Discussion, questions?
Has this resulted so far in any kind of groundswell of criticism or complaint from people that would be affected by it?
Not to my knowledge. I would have to defer, though, to the DNR director. It's possible she's had some. I don't know of any at our office.
Okay, that's good enough.
Any other questions, comments?
Sounds like a good idea.
Hearing none, we'll take a vote to recommend Article 14. James?
Yep.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, Article 15, to see if the town will vote to amend town bylaw under the waterways use of Chapter 170-4 speeds to read maximum speed for watercraft is slow, no wake, headway speed for on following bodies of tidal water: A, Great River, B, Little River, C, Santuit River, D, Mashpee River, E, Aquay Bay, F, Shoestring Bay, and Simmons Narrows, or take any other action relating thereto. Looking for a motion to recommend Article 15.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
A lot of speeding up and down those waterways?
I think it's just housekeeping. We wanted the bylaw for enforcement purposes.
If you have a boat in the water, it's gonna have a little wake, right? You just don't want it to go on, zoom, like some people do.
I wish we had revenue for every boat that I see with a wake in a no-wake zone.
Right?
well, at least here now, you've got something that they would be in violation of. It's hard to violate something when there is no regulation on it.
Right. And I think there was a difference between the state law versus the bylaw and what certain individuals could enforce. I think that was the issue, if I remember correctly. So,
you
again,
gonna cite
it's more of a
people?
housekeeping issue.
Will you cite people?
Yes.
And this gives you a specific language for the
Yes.
citation.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, anything else on this?
And we have had complaints.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a vote. James?
Yep.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $350,000 from revenue available for appropriation to the Natural Resources Waterways Expense Account, or take any other action relating thereto. Looking for a motion to recommend this article.
Motion.
Is there a second?
second,
All right, discussion, questions?
I assume because there's an amount specified that corresponds to a acceptable proposal from a contractor?
That's,
I can tell you, I don't know about where the dollar figure came from. I had nothing to do with that, but I can tell you this is going to be a special article. It's not going to be added to their expense budget. And the purpose for that is in case there's any delay, the funds will carry over into the next fiscal year. So if they're not expended by June 30, I'm not really sure where the dollar figure for the project came from, but
we can have staff come in and provide further details for you if you would like.
Yeah, I guess as kind of a sidebar, I'd be curious who the provider of that study is, and whether we've had an ongoing, working relationship with them, or whether this is the first time out
Okay.
at some point.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I missed who made the motion and the second on that one. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Darlene made the motion.
Thank you. And who seconded? Thank you. My apologies.
No problem.
Do you know how long this study is? How long the study's gonna take?
I'm not sure. Yeah, unfortunately, I only came down with the materials that you had questions on, and I do have the materials up in my office, but I just don't have them yet, because I didn't think you had a question.
All right. So we've got a motion to.
I'm always thinking, Rod.
I have to come better prepared, Greg.
We got a motion to recommend Article 16. John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
James?
Yep.
And I'm yes. Brings us Article 17. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $19,050 from revenue available for appropriation to the Natural Resources Waterways Expense Account, or take any other action relating thereto. Looking for a motion to recommend Article 17.
so moved.
Second.
All right, discussion, questions?
So what exactly is this, I'm trying to figure out what exactly this study is going to do. Or what they're gonna do with this money, exactly. Something about the algae blooms at Situate Pond and a warmer, I mean, don't we already know that? If it's warmer, you can get the algae blooms over there?
No, I think there's a lot more information. In fact, I know there's a lot more information. I did not bring my notes or materials down because I didn't think there was a question. So, again, if you want us to elaborate on it, I'd want the DNR director here, and I'll provide more support information.
Says the article may go away, too, so.
Yeah.
All right, no, I'm good.
No, I don't believe it's happening.
Oh, okay.
Anything else on Article 17? Hearing none, we'll take a vote to recommend. James?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
And I'm yes. All right, brings us Article 18, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer the sum of $9,000 from revenue available for appropriation to the election registration expense account to purchase 6 election poll pads and 6 election poll pad printers, or take any other action relating thereto. For a motion to recommend Article 18.
So moved.
We've got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, questions on Article 18?
It's a small amount of money, and it sounds like a worthwhile purpose, but I was curious when I first read it whether this efficiency would result in fewer poll workers.
I would have to defer it to the town clerk.
mean, it's great to save the paper. I didn't know if it,
I've learned not to answer for others.
I understand. I guess part of the question is this just kind of an isolated efficiency to comply with the checkout and check-in requirements of the state? But if it is more efficient, theoretically, we could save, I think, not only paper, but people.
I would kind of like to see Greg with the magnifying glass and a hanging chad.
I'm sure you would. Is this like an iPad they're talking about?
I-
A gold pad?
I am
like
telling you, I'm deferring to the town clerk. But I'll be more than happy to inform her that you would like
Electric
her
poll
at your
pads,
next meeting.
6 electric poll pad printers.
Well, it sounds like something that the state's requiring.
Would you like her at your next meeting?
No, I'm just reading
I
the.
I don't, I mean, she's certainly.
Always welcome here.
We're always happy to hear from her, but, failing that, a memo might suffice too.
I'll tell you what, I'll get a memo from her,
Yeah,
and
that'll be fine.
if that isn't suffice, Mr. Chair, if you could
I'll
just let
you
me know.
Yep, absolutely.
You got a note of that?
We have a memo.
So we're gonna hold that one?
No, we've got a motion to recommend it.
And some of this stuff is up in my office that I just didn't bring because I didn't think there was a question. I should have known, Greg.
So anything further discussion-wise, question-wise on 18?
I mean, I think, I wouldn't mind seeing the memo or.
Yeah, we're going to get you the memo.
Hearing
And then, like I said, if that's insufficient, then we'll have her attend, whatever
Yeah,
you
I'm
request.
like I said, I'm kind of curious whether there's a people exposure here, because, $9,000 would buy us an awful lot of paper over a long period of time, and if that's the sole issue. But, I don't know the business or, what the protocol is, so I certainly yield to the savvy that our town clerk has.
All right.
Does this take the place of a paper ballot? I mean, I'm unclear of what,
It's check-in and check-out, it says. It's not voting machines, et cetera.
All right. So could we get,
So I guess it's like when you go into the precinct now, they got these books, they have what street are you on, and they go
Right,
through
I get
page, and they
that.
cross it off, and then the same when you go out. So this sounds like an electronic way of doing the same thing.
electronic version of that?
Yeah. Which sounds, sounds like a modern way of doing it.
21st century.
But each of those tables, I don't know if we pay poll workers or whether they volunteer or a little of
No,
both.
they're paid,
So, now we have at least 2 people.
or some of them are paid.
There's at
I mean,
least
I
four
don't know if
people.
every single one of them
Well,
is.
there's 5 precincts.
Yeah, so there's at least 4 people, I think, associated with each of the 5 precincts, so that's 20 people. Maybe some tables only have 1, or maybe it depends on the precinct, but whenever, I think at precinct 5, when I've gone, there's 2 people when you check in, 2 people when you check out. They each have half of the street list.
Right.
So that's 20 people that we're paying, in addition to the paper costs. And maybe if it's more efficient, you don't have to go through reams of paper to get to the
I
street.
don't think we're paying most of them. I mean, I think we're looking for volunteers most of the time.
I don't know.
I've
I
done
just-
it.
Volunteer,
I
Greg?
volunteered, absolutely.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
There's my
know.
magnifying glass.
Okay, I didn't know that. Well, rah-rah for the volunteers.
there's a reason that you check in, it's, to make sure they're Mashpee residents
Correct.
who's voting. I mean,
It's
Oh,
just,
yeah,
it-
yeah,
you know,
it's
if this
interesting.
is, if this is a do-it-yourself check-in, you wonder about it. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a good point.
Too very fresh, I'm sorry.
Could we get maybe, someone withdraw that motion and put a new motion in to hold till we
Just a
can,
quick explanation of what these things are.
right,
All right,
for
so,
information's sake.
so do
You're
the,
going to have the memo.
Okay,
James,
well-
would you like to withdraw the motion? Didn't you make the motion to
No,
recommend this?
no,
Who made the motion to recommend?
Terry said he did.
Yeah.
All right, we'll withdraw it. Hold.
We'll withdraw it and change it. So, Greg, you want to make a motion to hold?
Make a motion to hold.
Second.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. And we'll take a vote on holding Article 18. John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg? James?
Yes,
All right, put that on hold unanimously. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to authorize and empower the Board of Selectmen to prepare a plan laying out and defining Caconchit Avenue and to accomplish said purpose and for expenses related thereto, the town vote to appropriate and transfer from revenue available for appropriation $5,000 to the Caconchit Avenue roadways account or take any other action related thereto. This is a petition article.
I move we recommend.
Got a motion to recommend, is there a second?
I spoke with Catherine about that, because that was the one I have to write the explanation for, so it's just the,
I'm waiting on a second.
oh, sorry.
I'll second it, just so we get the explanation.
All right, okay. Got a
So it's
motion.
just the standard cost of engineering the road in anticipation of a road taking by the town. Ultimately, this and subsequent construction cost would be paid for through a betterment, and the town over time gets its money back,
why,
plus a little
That's
interest.
what's different about 19 and 20. 20 goes into, there will be a betterment, but 19 doesn't. And by the way, thanks for sending over the road conversion procedure. That was really helpful. So right now, is that road a private road
Yes.
in that they're thinking of taking it?
Yes. Which one are you talking about?
19.
We're on 19.
Yes, yes.
it's a private road and owned by somebody, yes?
Owned by the people that abut the road.
Yes.
Why
Can-
do
it
they
can
have
be
to pay
in a-
it?
It can be an association, or it can be the abutters.
Why does the town pay for paving? Why don't the residents pay
They
for
do.
paving?
Why don't they pay for
Once
what?
the cost
Paving
is,
it.
once it's engineered and built, that's the deal that the town always has. So they assess a betterment, and then the property owners split the cost, however
Okay.
they choose.
So the town's
to
not paying
reimburse
for
the town.
paving it?
But when they see the cost, sometimes they don't want the town to take over the road.
True.
Well, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, there is, just, not to interrupt, but there is a problem when you have private roads. In Massachusetts, on the statute, you own to the center of the road, okay? However, when it comes to requiring it to be maintained by the abutters, there's a procedure, and it's very complicated to get people to pay for what's in front of their home. And very frankly, it's extremely difficult, because you've got to petition the courts. I've read through the statute a number of times. And it's expensive and people won't do it. That's why a lot of the private roads are in such disrepair. But if an abetment, they do have to pay the abetment. It's going to be attached to their property, whether they sell it or not. It'll go to the new owner, so that that road would be maintained properly and brought up to standards at the beginning.
But the cost would be borne by the residents.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
future maintenance would be town, but the actual getting it up to the good standards would be on the abutters.
And I think part of
And there
what,
should be a list of procedures in your packet.
I think part of what triggers this often too is some of these disrepaired roads show up on the no plow list each winter.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but when these roads have these moon craters, and they become extremely difficult because we don't want to plow them because of the potential damage to our equipment, but yet we also understand that we have a obligation to get a fire truck or an ambulance or a police car into the residence in case of an emergency. And sometimes there's disagreements amongst the residents in terms of the charge to bring it to the point where it's at least passable, never mind getting it to the point where the town would accept it.
Yeah, so if there was a fire down that road, you could refuse to go.
No,
You can't.
no, I'm talking about plowing. We get into these situations where, you know, it's
The town would
conflicted.
have to respond to emergencies?
We're always going to try to respond to an emergency.
Plowing is not an emergency, unless you live on the street.
But you damage,
Well,
when you damage equipment, you've got,
When the ambulance or the
Fire truck?
the fire truck cannot pass, then we will plow, but we'll do it reluctantly if it's those extreme conditions that I just described. And fortunately, those are few and far between now, but I know there's a couple roads, without naming them, that have been a real serious problem over the years.
So this is conditioned on the owners paying for the project to improve?
Yeah, the town doesn't pay to get it up to the
Right.
acceptable condition.
It's conditioned on that then, okay.
The
And
town
it's a
fronts the
peti-
money
and
and
it's a
then gets it
petitioned
back.
article.
the explanation in the handout was excellent, you know, and.
Well,
just
I
for the
thank
record-
staff.
Yeah, the record is, the improvements include estimated cost to improve the roads to the town standards, drainage, signage, repaving. And it's assessed over 20 years, the total cost divided equally among all the abutters. So the town will borrow the money, make the repairs, and then, as a betterment, assess all the abutting owners.
Plus, we charge interest.
But it gets, you know, the roads in better shape because they're used by the public. I imagine if someone's car is damaged to the pothole, they complain to the town. At the same time, I know fire and police are a danger, but in everyday usage, I imagine that's an issue too. Will they complain? And what can the town say? It's private property. And again, it's the derelict roads statute in Massachusetts, and it's very convoluted. But if they don't want to pay, there's almost no way to force them into it, so. And if the neighborhood, I assume they petitioned the town to take the road, so if they're in favor of it, that's,
And do they know all of these procedures?
I
That
think
they-
they're generally provided them when they come in, yeah, administrative assistants nodding yes. So they're always given them.
Okay.
okay.
All right, take a vote on recommendation of Article 19. James?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right.
Before you start on the next one, I would submit that this falls under the heading of a long
Oh, yeah.
article.
I was just
long
planning
one.
on summarizing
Thank you.
for this one and the next one. So basically, Article 20, it's again a petition article to complete the taking of the conversion from private to public roads of Cedar Street, Chestnut Street, Devon Street, Ash Street, Hawthorne Street, and Gina's Way. So looking for a motion to recommend Article 20.
so moved.
Second.
All right, discussion.
I have just one question, you may not be able to answer it. They assess it equally among all the abutters? So if a person has a double lot, they would be assessed too, or is that how it's done?
Yes,
Per lot.
yep, yep. It's per lot.
For a lot, okay.
Where are the roads located?
There's a map.
That's in your
There was a
Yeah, I
map
know.
given out.
map.
It's, very clear. Okay, whatever.
It's off of Quiniquisette, almost to the Katuitt line,
kind of forget where it is. Off
off of Quiniquisette,
of Quiniquisette.
right on the Katuitt line. It's on Shoestring
Will they
Bay.
be getting storage, will they be getting storage there?
Okay.
We want to,
What did you say?
will they be getting storage in that area?
No.
No, okay. I hate to put a new road in and then dig it up a year later. Greg wouldn't like that. Okay.
Okay, reputation.
Right?
Anything else on Article 20? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. John?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
Darlene?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
James?
Yep.
And I'm a yes. All right, Article 21, another petition article. Town to complete the private to public road conversion for Oldham Circle. Looking for motion to recommend.
so moved.
Second.
Yeah, motion and a second. Any questions, discussion on Article 21?
This is a petition too, yes.
Yes. And hearing none, we'll take a vote on recommendation. James?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes,
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, Article 22. This is also a petition article to see if the town will vote to adopt as a general bylaw, this prevention of sale of single-use plastic water bottles.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move that we not recommend this article. Make that motion.
We got a
This is
motion,
for the retailers?
I second that.
okay, we got a motion not to recommend Article 22. All right, discussion and question. And yes, I believe this only applies to retailers, from the way it's worded. And again, it's only for water of less than 1 gallon.
Well,
Then,
it's only less for water today.
Okay, at the moment.
At the moment.
The way this is written, it's
And there's a
water
pat,
bottles of less than 1
Right.
gallon in size.
but
what's the use then? I mean, you have soda bottles and,
well, I mean, there's a pattern showing up. And the pattern is, let's start outlawing all these things and taking it off the table, in my opinion. So it started with an article last year to take out plastic bottles in the town properties, like this building, you can't buy a bottle of water here. And now it's expanding, and it's gonna keep expanding. And I think that, thank the Lord, we had some plastic during the pandemic, because that helped a lot of people get through. A lot of businesses had to use some plastic, including bottled water.
yeah, it's impractical.
In fact, my vaccine was a plastic syringe that I took my shot in. There you go. So I'm just saying that y'all know my stands on banning things, and this is one of them. I think it's overreach, and it's going to continue to overreach. So I think my recommendation, my hope is that we vote no against this, and then let the townspeople decide as it goes forward.
Well, they're free to buy bottled waters if they want, or they're free not to buy them.
Right. And it's helpful sometimes. I mean, I have Mashpee water in my home. Good tasting water, too. But if we'd had this hurricane come through here, where would anybody received any bottled water?
Well, they'd be exempt.
Well,
Maybe.
Well, I think that's provided for.
Yeah.
This is I'm not sure how I feel about this. I see both points of view on it. I guess, you're arguing that it's a constitutional right to purchase bottled water, therefore you can't ban it.
constitutional right. It's
Well,
a personal right.
I'm using a entertaining metaphor, let's call it.
We'll entertain that.
But the reason behind it is this, the colossal ramifications of environmental detriment resulting from people that don't know any better in most cases, recklessly disposing of this. And they're encouraged by the plastic industry that makes it easy to happen, as well as the people that do the bottling and so on. I think Falmouth was the most recent town to enact this, which I believe is just now becoming effective. So the people in Mashpee, the businesses here that sell bottled water probably would like to continue that because now they have newfound customers, that come over from Falmouth. It's sort of like, the consequences of the nip bottle ban, you go to the next town to buy it, but you still throw it out the window when you come back to town.
Well, if you're talking about littering, or you're talking about
Yeah.
using plastics, okay?
Well, I
The
think, I
plastics
don't
are
think you,
recyc-
if I could just,
plastics are
if I could finish rather than having an argument about it. So the only point I'm making is I certainly respect where you're coming from. And until we vote tonight on how to recommend it, I'm not quite sure which way that I'm going to go on this, but I tend to side more with the environmental concerns than I do with the concept of banning stuff,
Yeah, but-
as much as I respect it. So that's kind of where
Shouldn't
I'm
that
at.
be the user then, rather than the retailer?
I'm sorry?
Shouldn't that be the user rather than the retailer?
Well, it comes down to education, I would argue. So,
Yeah,
most people, they buy the
use some
plastic
beach
and
or
throw it
something
away
like
because they
that.
don't know any better. And we don't invest as much as arguably we should. I mean, it would probably be cheaper to educate the global population than to pick up the cost of saving the environment because of the plastics.
But if I may, we're not talking about the global population. I'm talking about Mashpee. And we do live in the most educated state in the country. And if people aren't educated in this state to know that they can recycle, something's wrong.
I agree.
And we have great recycling in Mashpee. I mean, people continue to recycle. There's all kinds of opportunities to recycle those bottles. If not at the transfer station, you can go get your nickel back down at the store.
Yeah.
So there's recycling, people
I think that would
recycling.
probably be a more appropriate
Yeah.
obligation, is to create a return
There's no deposit
fee.
on,
Yeah, there's no deposit
there's
on the
no
water.
deposit on
Oh,
this.
I misspoke, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But my point is, we have recycling in Mashpee. And anyone, and educated people live in Mashpee, and they know to recycle, and people do it, so.
Well, New York
People
has
litter
a,
no matter what. If
Right,
people are going to
exactly.
litter, you find the people that litter, that's what you do. That's the ones you take the action against.
yeah, or a deposit fee. I mean,
Well-
New York has a deposit fee, and people go through picking the garbage to,
So,
That would help too, but that sort of thing has to come from the state.
Right,
You know,
right,
the towns
absolutely.
don't have the power to do that.
Right.
They do have the town to do something, the power to do this.
It's interesting, a lot of states around us do have a deposit on
Right.
water bottles.
Yeah.
And I was note that the,
have a deposit on all bottles,
Right.
glass, plastic, whatever.
I will note that the Board of Selectmen voted 3-2 in favor, so they weren't unanimous on this. So they had some questions as well.
Yeah, I think I think it should be a deposit fee, and the state should really take it upon itself to do something about that.
we can't control that, but we can put our 2 cents into
Absolutely,
this.
absolutely. For what it's worth.
Yeah.
Any,
Recycle properly. And guess what? All the environmentalists, we will save trees because they'll make treks in the plastic woods out of recycled plastics and don't have to cut a tree down.
And a lot of people use bottled water for whatever reason.
Yep.
Right? I mean, but the bottom line is a personal choice, and I believe that if you have you have an obligation to recycle, and you should. And we know that in this state, and I think it's something we should.
And an obligation not to litter.
Correct, absolutely.
Those go hand in hand.
Yep.
Okay.
all right, we'll take a vote on not recommending Article 22. Let's start with James.
So I'm voting to not recommend it?
Right.
Yes.
Greg?
Voting not to recommend it,
Yes.
yes.
Darlene?
Yes.
Pat?
Voting not to recommend.
John?
I'm going to vote no, only because I don't want the Finance Committee to be seen as unanimously against the concept of doing this, much like the selectmen did, I think.
Yeah, I also vote no, not to, against not recommending it.
Yeah.
So it's 4-2 not to recommend.
Can I ask another question about this? So in cases like this, the standard boilerplate in the warrants is what you see here. The Board of Selectmen recommends, blah, 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 the Finance Committee recommends approval. But in cases where, let's say in this case, the Board of Selectmen voted 2-3 the other way, wouldn't it make more sense for the people that are reading this article at the voting place to say that the Board of Selectmen does not recommend this article by a vote of 2-3, or that the Finance Committee does not recommend this article by a vote of whatever? Or do we do that?
We
Maybe-
do that.
We do that, okay.
Ours will read that the Finance Committee does not recommend approval of this article by 4-2.
Okay, thank you. I kind of lost sight of that. Never mind.
And it would be interesting to know, Mr. Town Manager, the number of citations given out in Mashpee for littering. Could you ask the police department about that, please, for me?
Yeah, the $100 a whack, you know, we could pick up some nice spare change.
All right, this brings us to Article 23. To see if the town will vote to amend Article 7, Land Space Requirement, Section 17431, Land Space Requirement Table by adding footnote 25 to maximum of lot coverage %. Footnote 25 should read as follows, and I'm not going to read that. So we're going
I move that we, well, just to get on the table, I move that we recommend.
Is there a second? Yeah, in that case, I will second it.
This is several articles here on this topic, which are by petition, as I understand it. The planning board has not yet acted on them for purposes of the warrant, and I think that happens
September 1st,
September,
14th.
pretty close, pretty tight to the deadline. So I'm a little reluctant to take a position until the planning board has.
14th.
All right. I know in talking with Evan, the town planner, there's a lot of merit to having an overlay district that accommodates solar. And in that context, it's really irrelevant, I guess, what the motivation of the petitioner is for a particular parcel. And therefore, you know, if the timetable allows for it, I would really like to hear how the planning board chimes in on the desirability of this series before we take a position.
Unfortunately, from what I just heard the town manager say, they're doing it on the 14th, which is our last meeting to finalize the Finance Committee report.
Where do they meet? Down the hall?
Yeah, but we're meeting at the library that night.
Oh, we are.
Because everything else here is booked that night. And the other thing is, they're making that decision after the board executes the warrant.
Got it.
And the Board of Selectmen, to my knowledge, hasn't voted on this yet.
Yeah,
either.
they haven't taken any action on any of these articles.
Because they were waiting for the planning board too. I
Right.
think.
Yeah, so
Well,
Motion to hold.
A bit of a dilemma.
The other thing is that we basically say we'll make our recommendation on the floor.
Yeah, that might be the way to go.
So.
or at least wait until the selectmen,
Just for your info, the select board or select men are going to be making the recommendation possibly at town meeting, possibly.
Okay. Well, maybe we should just do the same then,
exactly.
because then we'll know at least what the planning board's
I
thinking.
think so.
I think one thing that's interesting, and this article doesn't put the definitions of medium and large-scale solar, but when you read Article 24, they do define them.
Right.
And you're talking about medium from 1,750 to 40,000 square feet. And large scale is over 40,000 square feet.
Wow.
Wow. That would be a field.
And
of
small scale's
solar
under
panels.
1,750. The square footage, what I thought was very interesting, what they use for definitions. And they combine medium and, as they do here, medium and large. So they're combining them both, but they define them as two different things. So I'd like to know a little bit more about this.
Right.
Uh,
And do we know where they're going?
Well, these are for the parking lots. These, I assumed, on the above.
Do you have the memo from the planner?
I don't seem to have that. I just borrowed Jeff's.
Did you hand it out earlier?
It was in the
So
same.
Is it this
it's on the
package?
roof of
Yes, it's in that
carports?
packet.
Got it, thank you, thank you.
On the roof
Well,
of
that
carports?
could be sitting in my,
Yeah.
sitting on my
The
desk.
packet was this here? Is a copy of it?
No, it was with,
Here it is.
it was with the articles for the road conversion.
Right, but those that were
Was
just
that-
handed
that's
out
the package?
tonight,
I
this
broke
packet
them
was
up.
handed out
Okay.
tonight, it's in there.
Well, it says, what's interesting is it says carport structures in approved parking lots, and then it says areas.
I'm assuming that's the one where they have the carports and they put them on top of the carports. I'm assuming that's what it is.
I need more information about this.
Yeah. I mean, carports would be okay, I think.
Is it possible to get did someone, the motion was made and seconded, is that correct?
Right, it's made and seconded to recommend at the moment.
Can we request that be withdrawn and put on hold until we're ready to vote on it?
Or we could just decide now to
Right.
recommend a town meeting.
If you want to withdraw this, I've got a motion I'll make.
Oh, was it mine?
Yeah, you
I'll
made.
withdraw
you
my
made-
motion. Okay, I
we'll
forgot.
withdraw that motion. What, I'd like to make a motion that we put Articles 24 through 28 on hold. And
23
pending more information,
23 to 28.
I would have, isn't it
23? Yeah, 20,
23.
sorry, 23 to 28 on hold. And we'll determine,
Pending definitions.
We can read the definitions, we can read the memo,
Yeah.
and
Right.
then read them all.
but
And then
we can,
then discuss it.
we
Right.
can come back and discuss
Right.
and determine whether or not we want to make a recommendation now or at town meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's the motion, is to put these on hold for right now.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
And I suppose when we do talk about it or think about it, you know, I guess one question is there a significant financial implication by allowing or not allowing this?
To the owner,
For who?
To the town.
no.
Well, the town gets no benefit, won't get any benefit from it. It's the
Well,
individual.
No, the owner
property
sells the power into the grid sells it to the consumer.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm a property owner and I have solar panels on my carport or on the roof, and the house is worth therefore more, and has a higher tax assessment, then the town gets a benefit, so, that, you know, who knows?
Yet to be seen.
I would like to know how much of it is on the roof of something versus on an open field.
Or conversely, if it's a large-scale project covering multiple acres for the purpose of
it's
having a
gotta
solar
be-
farm, then, you know, I don't know what the tax ramifications are, but maybe like agriculture, it's exempt from, you know, the highest assessed value that it might otherwise be if it were subdivided and turned into house lots. So,
No, that's what they're doing in Falmouth,
Don't know.
at the golf course over there.
All right, so that's, we've gone through the warrant. I've given you all copies of the explanations I've received so far.
I'll send you mine, I drafted them and didn't send them over.
Yep, not a problem. So Pat, James, and Greg, if you can give me your explanations, I can add them to the document. I can email it to everybody so that we can have a chance to look at them and discuss them at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right? Darlene, do you have any sort of an update on the RFP?
I do not. I asked Mike, and he was going to be working on it.
All right.
And right now, he's not here.
Yeah, I know. And I asked him in an email as well to get a status on it. All right. Anything else you need to update us on, Mr. Town Manager?
Nothing other than thankful that Hurricane Henri did not hit us as initially
Not
projected.
Uh-huh.
I obviously had some people on standby at a cost, in good faith. As it turned out, if I had had that crystal ball that I referred to earlier, I wouldn't have done it, but I did. But it was all in good faith, thinking that we had to be preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. And I'm glad that it was the best scenario for Cape Cod and specifically for Mashpee. And I'm not even aware of anybody that's lost or did lose power. And there were no incidents, so it ended well.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get that information out to you and brief you, just in case there was a worst-case scenario, and then all of a sudden I'm knocking on your door for the reserve fund, you'd understand why.
I appreciate that notification.
Could that reserve fund, fund that cell tower? Because if we'd had that hurricane, it knocked us out, southern side of Mashpee would have been hurting.
Yeah.
In another emergency, without cell service for people in our community and those visiting it. And it's appalling to me that it's taken so long.
I know, and it should be resolved just around the corner.
Excellent.
We have a court date.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give the town manager and his immediate staff that's in our presence tonight an attaboy or an attagirl for the work put into answering the questions that we went through tonight.
Yes,
It was
staff,
It was a major assignment.
Major,
and
thank
I'm
you.
impressed.
Staff did a lot of research. I thank particularly the finance director, the administrative assistant, and along with a host of others. We pulled it together, and as much as I was pulling out my hair, whatever I have left, with all the questions, I have to say that I prefer to get those in advance and then come in here than compared to saying, well, I gotta go upstairs and research something, which I'm more than happy to do, by the way. I'm not saying you can't throw a curveball or throw a surprise question out there, because I expect it, but I prefer the process that we did, because it just
Absolutely.
gives everybody an opportunity
And
to,
especially with the time crunch we're under right now.
Exactly. It gives
we've got
every-
3 meetings left.
yep, it gives everybody the opportunity to digest it.
Yep. All right.
I do have a quick question for you, and you mentioned, bless you, James.
Bless
You mentioned earlier that the town engineer had, you inferred the town engineer had suggested maybe this aerial photo thing, right, to help us on our expenses. And as we go forward, I mean, I'm sure we're incurring expenses already with the wastewater, the management of that, and the engineering of that by GHD. Is he looking at those bills too? And does he scrutinize what the bills are and what they're spending? And do you have a breakdown of that for me? Or can you get a breakdown of that for me? Because I'm concerned to make sure that, that the dollars are being spent in an appropriate way for our town as we go forward.
Well, it's funny you should ask. There are a lot of
I think we should
questions,
prepare for this.
and he is all over it. And I dare say that I've had a lot of questions that have not been satisfactorily answered up to this point, but we will continue to pursue the answers just like you do. And we're not signing off on anything financially unless we are satisfied. And if the engineer's not satisfied, then I'm not satisfied. I can tell you the last thing we want to do is hold up any part of this process. We do not want to hold anything up. We don't want to be a stumbling block to anything. We want things to go very, very smoothly. But we also have a responsibility to you and the taxpayers of this community to make sure that we've done our due diligence. The Sewer Commission is fully aware that the expenditures have got to be signed off by me. Contracts have got to be signed off on by me. Staff knows what the requirements are, and I think we're in a better place than what we were, but I also feel that some of those costs are, if not excessive, they're certainly, at the very least, questionable. And I will be more than happy to get you the breakdown. And I think we're going to need some briefings in this forum.
Okay. Well, I'd asked, I mean, I brought this up months and months ago when we were discussing this, the overruns by anybody. And so I want to make sure, and there was talk about a person being like I forget what they called it, procurement agent, or the person looking at the bills as they came in. Is our engineer going to be that person?
He is going to be that person, and, and he's given me an education, the pipes may not have to be so far down. You may not have to cross this road, or if you do cross this road, there's a certain strategy involved. And I got to tell you, you're going to be very, very happy that whatever article it was, I forget now, on his supplemental, that is well worth it, because he has been.
He'll pay for himself.
Oh, he already has, in my view. He's been a shining star as far as the wastewater stuff is concerned. We needed him on board, and I'm glad that he is. And he is the operational point person for the Sewer Commission now, and or I should say for GHD, and the Sewer Commission is aware, and he's also the point person for the Sewer Commission itself. And I think there's a good coordinated effort there right now. And for your info, longtime Chair Tom Fadella did step down. I know he's taking a nice long vacation, I think, to Europe. And I just want to recognize his time and effort that he's put into this. That's where his passion has been for 20 or 30 years. And I thank him for his service to the town. I don't think we have a new chair yet, but we will soon. And when we do, I think we've had good communication. We're all on the same page in regards to how things need to be coordinated from GHD to payment. But it's very, very clear that certain checks and balances have got to be followed, or they're not receiving a check.
We're on good terms with GHD, for the most part? Question mark?
For the most part.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for the town manager? Hearing none. Thank you very much for all your efforts
you.
tonight.
Thanks,
We
Wayne.
appreciate
Thank you
it.
all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Next item on new business. We've got a meeting scheduled for November 11th, which we can't hold because it's Veterans Day. So we need to move that meeting. My thinking is just pushing it off a week to the 18th.
That makes sense.
Anyone opposed to that?
November?
Yeah, November 18th. All right, hearing no opposition,
Yeah, that looks
I will
good.
amend the schedule and let the town clerk know. All right. Anything else that we need to talk about at the moment? Hearing none, the next meeting will be here next Thursday, September 2nd. We're already into September.
Scary.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there
Second.
any opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is over. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.